mystery
in our history.
Hey everyone, thanks for listening to the Mystery in Our History podcast, where we take an in-depth look at all things urban legend and conspiracy theory related and how they came to be. I'm J.R. Supa, that is Chris Berry. Here we go.
Nope.
After what can only be described as an exhausting 4 episodes on Flat Earth, Chris and I decided to take a break, and a break is much needed from that sort of subject matter.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And we decided, as a bit of a palate cleanser, we're going to do something non-conspiracy driven and more urban legend related. And so we are diving back into our haunted series this week.
I love how you call it a haunted series. Like it's established. We're establishing it right now, by the way.
I established it long ago.
Did you?
I don't know. I think I did.
Yeah, fair enough.
But thrust into the middle of urban Philadelphia is what looks like a great castle, a massive and haunting building. Now, this haunting building is now believed by many to be a haunted building, and the castle was designed not to keep out invaders, or to protect knights, but rather to keep people in. And we are, of course, talking about Eastern State Penitentiary.
Now that already sounds pretty spooky, dude. So, I don't think I've actually asked you on the show. Do you believe in ghosts or the paranormal?
Yeah, so I can't remember I think maybe the first episode we did no haunted series.
Yeah. I mean, I got a poor memory, so.
It's all good. I do believe more in the paranormal than I do in the conspiracy theories. I think that ghosts are real. I'm not necessarily sold on all the different theories about ghosts, but I do think that there may just be either spirits or whatever you want to call it that are linked to this world. I don't think everybody that dies becomes a ghost, but I think the unfinished business aspect of things can lead to paranormal activity. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. All right. No, that's cool. I'm on the opposite side of you. I actually don't believe in that as much. And for whatever reason.
But that's what makes this podcast so much fun is I don't believe in the conspiracy theories, you do, and I believe in the urban legends and you don't.
Yeah. Yeah, but I do still keep an open mind to ghosts, so I'll take evidence.
Also, we never have been, but we're still not sponsored by Natural Light Hard Seltzer, even though I enjoy them so very much.
Yep, get at us.
Yeah. It's never gonna happen. Maybe when we have more than 12 viewers.
Well, you keep giving it away for free over here, man. You gotta play hard to get.
It's a good product, damn it.
I stand behind a good product.
That's right. Regardless of whether or not they give me money. Please give me money.
Please, though, guys.
So prior to its construction and opening on October 25th, 1829, prisons had generally been commercial ventures filled with prostitutes, booze, corrupt officials, and little to no order. Starvation, cold, disease, and violence often put an end to prisoners before they were even sentenced.
Well, they filled it up with booze, too. I can't believe they'd lock up the booze like that.
I can't tell. So when I was doing the research on this, and putting this together, I couldn't tell if they were saying because of the corruption there was booze in the prisons, or they were imprisoning people that the booze, because this is before prohibition. This is way before. Yeah, prohibition was in the 1900s. This is 1829. So I couldn't tell if they were saying people that were illegally doing something with booze, or if it was just because it was so corrupt they just had booze in it.
Yeah, just toilet shine everywhere.
Exactly. But when John Havland, a prominent Philadelphia architect, designed Eastern State Penitentiary, all of that would completely change. Eastern State's revolutionary system of incarceration, dubbed the Pennsylvania system, or separate system, encouraged separate confinement as a form of rehabilitation. The warden was legally required to visit every inmate every day, and the overseers were mandated to see each inmate 3 times a day.
I mean, the solitary confinement sounds pretty bad, but more wellness checks doesn't necessarily sound like a terrible thing.
So the Pennsylvania the Pennsylvania system was opposed contemporaneously by the Auburn system, also known as the New York system, which held that prisoners should be forced to work together in complete silence and could be subject to physical punishment. Sing Sing prison was an example of the Auburn system. Although the Auburn system was favored in the United States, Eastern States' radial floor plan and system of solitary confinement was the model for over 300 prisons worldwide.
And for the people at home, and not at all for me, what's the Sing Sing prison? Because they definitely don't know.
Sing Sing was a maximum security prison in New York.
Gotcha. Okay. So probably very brutal.
Yes. Yeah, it's not a nice place. But I don't think Sing Sing is considered haunted. It was just a shitty prison.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I love how you said for the people at home and not for me.
No, not for me at all. I had no idea.
I knew what Sing Sing was.
Yeah, I know what I did the research, right? I helped with the research.
Oh, you're a silly goose. Now, compared to other facilities, Eastern State was a technological marvel, and at a cost of $800,000, which today, that's over $22 million.
Hey, old money, huh?
Yeah. Gotta love inflation, right? It was one of the most expensive building projects of its day. At a time when President Andrew Jackson was still using a chamber pot, prisoners in Eastern State had their own private toilets. Inmates were served 3 hearty meals a day, usually boneless beef, pork, or soup, and unlimited potatoes. Unlimited?
Yeah. It's like round robin or whatever.
And they had their own private exercise areas. The cells each had skylights so that the divine wisdom of God might shine down upon those inside. In essence, Eastern State was a paradise compared to other prisons of the time, but despite all its material comforts, this paradise would end up driving men mad.
Uh-oh. That sounds ominous. However, honestly, for a prison, that place doesn't sound really half bad. I mean, it's a prison, but like it sounds like it's got all the amenities. I mean, Andrew Jackson's shitting in a pot. He's the president. This guy's got toilets. I don't know, man.
Well, it sounds nice, but what you're gonna you're gonna see as we get further into this is, despite the amenities, it wasn't as nice as it appeared. Now, originally, inmates were housed in cells that could only be accessed by entering through a small exercise yard attached to the back of the prison. Only a small portal just large enough to pass meals opened onto the cell blocks. This design proved impractical, and in the middle of construction, cells were constructed that allowed prisoners to enter and leave the cell blocks through metal doors that were covered by a heavy wooden door to filter out noise. And the halls were designed to have a feel of a church.
It's pretty nifty. I mean, the place sounds like it's a little bit more soundly built than my own apartment, so...
The problem is that these guys are all by themselves in this room, and these rooms are essentially being double barricaded to keep the sound out and in. So you were really just alone.
Alone with your thoughts. Going stir crazy, yeah.
Yep.
Oof.
Now, some believe that the doors were so small so prisoners would have a harder time getting out, minimizing an attack on security guards. Others have explained the small doors forced the prisoners to bow while entering their cell. This design is related to penance and ties to the religious inspiration of the prison. The cells were made of concrete with a single glass skylight representing the eye of God and suggesting to the prisoners that God was always watching them.
Yeah, and I bet back then that was a slap in the face because everyone that at that time was religious. So to have God watching you while you serve in your presence,
right?
Yeah, you better start repenting.
Yeah, well, and that's kind of the thing, is because this is such a religious time and a God-heavy time. That's you'll see this influence, as this prison's being built and as inmates are brought into this. It's very God-centric and very like old style God-centric.
Yeah. Not chill God, mean God.
Right, exactly. Now, outside the cell was an individual area for exercise, enclosed by high walls so prisoners could not communicate. And exercise time for each prisoner was synchronized, so no two prisoners next to each other would be out at the same time. Prisoners were allowed to garden and even keep pets in their exercise yards. And when a prisoner left his cell, an accompanying guard would wrap a hood over his head to prevent him from being recognized by other prisoners.
That's a little bizarre, huh?
Yeah.
Like, is the point to hide identity, or is the point to like further isolate them?
It's total isolation. Now, the funny thing, what really got me, though, is that you're doing total isolation of these people. The only human interaction they have is the warden once a day and their overseer 3 times a day. They have no interaction with anyone who isn't an authority figure. But then they can keep a pet.
Yeah.
And I couldn't find info on what the pets that they were allowed to keep were, but I'm assuming it might have been like a rat that they like started feeding or something. I doubt they had like a fucking Burmese mountain dog.
Right.
Living in their exercise yard, you know what I mean? It was just kind of like if a bird decided to hang out and wanted to be your friend, you can hang out with the bird. They wouldn't just come in and like shoot the damn thing. Now, the original design of the building was for 7 one-story cell blocks, but by the time all the cell block 3 was completed, the prison was already over capacity. All the subsequent cell blocks had 2 floors. Towards the end, cell blocks 14 and 15 were hastily built due to overcrowding, and they were built and designed by prisoners. Cell block 15 was for the worst behaved prisoners, and the guards were gated off from there entirely.
That's kind of neat that prisoners helped design it, at least.
Mm-hmm.
But those poor SOBs definitely didn't get paid for it. That's that free labor thing.
No, yeah, absolutely. But that's also why if you see like pictures of this prison, everything looks the same except for like those 2 last cell blocks. They're just like they look completely out of place.
Yeah, I bet.
Now, ESP essentially employed a method of imprisonment known today as solitary confinement. The difference is that today, solitary confinement is used as a punishment for someone rather than a method of imprisonment. You do something wrong, they put you in solitary. Eastern State put everybody in solitary right from day one, and spending too much time alone with yourself can drive someone insane. But it wasn't just the way prisoners were held that contributed to the madness. It was widely believed among paranormal experts that there are many factors that can contribute to a specific place being haunted. Unfinished business is often the most popular. Another popular theory is when something unbelievably speakable happens someplace that may or may not cause people to die immediately, but does cause their souls to bind to someplace after death.
Sounds pretty juicy. I'm ready to dive in the paranormal side of these things.
And so I think this Eastern State Penitentiary is a bit of a combination of the two, with option B being the heavier of it.
Cool.
So in the case of Eastern State, these acts took place in Cell Block 3, the prison's long-abandoned medical wing. The hospital block features an operating room, laboratory, a pharmacy, x-ray lab, hydrotherapy rooms, psychiatric department, and solarium for treating tuberculosis patients. Tubulosis.
Tubulosis. But I think I kind of
that's being way too cool, man. Way too
that's
cool.
Way too rad, man. I think I see where this is going, and I'm not a fan.
Yeah. Well, here we go.
All right.
The harsh punishments used on prisoners are enough to make you shiver even without seeing a ghost. There was the water bath, in which inmates were dunked, then hung out on the wall in the winter until ice formed on their skin.
No way, dude. That's so brutal.
Yeah. Gets better.
Oh my god.
The Mad Chair. Sounds pleasant enough.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
bound an inmate so tightly that circulation was cut off, later necessitating amputations.
What? Jesus Christ, dude. How is amputating a limb a punishment? That's sadistic.
Yeah.
Holy fuck.
There's the iron gag,
Okay.
in which an inmate's hand were tied behind the back and strapped to an iron collar in the mouth, so that any movement caused the tongue to tear and bleed profusely.
Fuck, dude. These are insanely cruel punishments.
Well, there's also the hole.
Ew.
And the hole, besides being the female member of a morning zoo radio program, the hole is a dank underground cell where unfortunate souls had no light, no human contact, no exercise, no toilet, and little food and air.
No. I mean, I referenced it earlier, but it just kind of sounds like my current apartment, so I don't see anything wrong with that. I live in the hole.
So they took solitary confinement and went, how do we make it even worse? Oh, we'll just remove everything.
Yeah, put them in a cave, basically, an
Yep.
underground cave.
That's exactly what they
Jesus.
did. So it's safe to say there were many angry souls with plenty of unfinished business tied to Eastern State Penitentiary. Now, the prison, which closed in 1971, is considered by several sources to be one of the most haunted places in America. It has been featured on the Travel Channel's Ghost Adventures.
Now, you did get Zach Bagans on the show, right? Yeah, I mean, because he shouldn't have. Zach Bagans, yeah, he's on the show. We have him live.
So
Can we get him in?
we'll bring them in a minute.
Yeah, just I had him call in before the show. This was a surprise.
Anyway, we don't have him. Zach will not be joining us. The most it's been featured on the Travel Channel's Ghost Adventures and Most Haunted Live, Sci-Fi's Ghost Hunters, and MTV's Fear. Dozens of paranormal researchers visit every year and report that it's a hub of otherworldly activity. Perhaps most convincingly, there are the stories of eerie experiences by visitors, staff, guards, and inmates that have corroborated each other since the 40s.
And that's always my favorite too, is when like people from who don't know each other, don't work the same profession, tell stories that match up, because like it just can't be a coincidence at that point. You know what I mean? Like
I mean, for me, it depends on the scenario. I like to believe that people are seeing the same thing, and that's kind of what contributes to like the evidence that absolutely this is a haunted place. But you can never escape the legend, the word of mouth.
right.
You know what I mean? So like even if somebody in the 40s, so let's say somebody in the 40s, they see something, they're going to tell everybody about it, and it's freaking them the fuck out. That becomes legend, and legend gets passed down generationally within the prison. You know, you're going to sometimes it's just because you think that's what you're supposed to be seeing.
Right. Some people are seeing kind of what they want to see because they
Yeah.
know it's there or think that it's there.
Right. But according to first-hand accounts, Cell Block 12 is known for echoing voices and cackling. Cell Block 6 is known for shadowy figures darting across the walls, which fuck that noise. Cell Block 4 for visions of ghostly faces. And many people have reported seeing a silhouette of a guard in one of the towers. Footsteps, wails, whispers. The same stories over and over again.
So is this where we're gonna try to do our sleepover podcast? Because I'm down.
I wish.
Right? That'd be really cool. I
I
think.
don't think we can do a sleepover there. Although, little teaser, I did potentially find a place where we can do a haunted series on-site sleepover podcast.
I'm into it.
So, but one of the most legendary tales comes from Gary Johnson,
the 2016 presidential candidate, who you got on the show, right? You never get sick of this joke.
No.
Let's phone in Gary Johnson, the 2016 Libertarian
Gary Johnson
candidate.
is who helps maintain the crumbling old locks at the prison. In the early 1990s, he had just opened an old lock in cell block 4 when he says a force gripped him so tightly that he was unable to move. He described a negative, horrible energy that exploded out of the cell. He said tormented faces appeared on the walls and that one form in particular beckoned him.
That's interesting, but I don't believe it. But it's interesting. I don't know. It sounds a little much for like a ghost. I don't know. I guess the IC is what it wants to see.
But, you know, that's the thing with ghosts is it's always firsthand accounts, and then anything that's ever captured on tape or whatever the case may be is always scrutinized and debated.
Usually, yeah.
You know, it's like you gotta experience it for yourself, otherwise nothing.
I think that's why I'm not a believer. It's because I never really like had an experience, so and I want one. Like I'm open to it. Like,
well, hopefully we'll have one. I found a place. It's in Massachusetts. It may work.
Nice. That's exciting.
But notorious criminals such as Al Capone and bank robber Willie Sutton were actually held at Eastern State Penitentiary's innovative wagon wheel design. James Bruno, Big Joe, and several male relatives were incarcerated there between 1936 and 1948 for the alleged murders in the Kelly Race massacre. Kelly Race, I don't know how to pronounce it. I give up. Of 1934, before they were paroled. At its completion, the building was the largest and most expensive public structure ever erected in the United States.
That's pretty cool that like those walls held some pretty big name criminals.
Yeah. And for everyone's education, not edification.
Yeah, either one.
We have just a timeline of some of the more interesting clips from history regarding Eastern State Penitentiary. So 1829, October 25th. Eastern State Penitentiary opens. Its first inmate, Charles Williams, prisoner number 1. Burglar, light black skin, 5 feet 7 inches tall, foot size 11 inches, scar on the nose, scar on the thigh, broad mouth, black eyes, farmer by trade, can read. Theft included one $20 watch, one $3 gold seal, one and a gold key. He was sentenced to 2 years confinement with labor. Received by Samuel R. Woods, the first warden, Eastern State Penitentiary.
And that's, it's funny to say because that sounds like a pretty fair sentence. And I don't remember fair sentences in my lifetime.
I just think it's very ironic that the first prisoner here in 1829 was, I guess, a black man. Yeah.
I mean, some things never change, man.
It's weird.
Like history, we're just the system is rotten to the core.
Yeah.
It's really just gonna get who it wants in its system.
There's actually there's a podcast that I listen to called Throughline, but it's an NPR podcast. Really great. Highly recommend check it out. They do a episode on the history of like prisons and how African Americans ended up like overpopulating prisons. You know, like being the highest demographic in prisons. It's pretty interesting.
Oh, it's crazy, dude. Like since the dawn of time, they just get unfair sentences for everything. If this was today, and he stole something of equal value, 30 years maybe.
5 years, 3 years of parole.
Yeah.
First offense.
Yeah.
1831. Work completed on Block 3, the last of the original single-story cell blocks. Work begins on blocks 4, 5, 6, and 7, all 2 stories, to accommodate the increasing number of convicts. Block 7, completed in 1835. Also, first female prisoner received.
Hey, insert equality joke here.
Well, I guess back then they didn't have separate prisons.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense.
And lastly, French commissioners Gustave de Beaumont and Alex de Tocqueville visit to study the new correctional system. 1832, the first escape.
Yay. Now it's interesting.
An inmate who served as the warden's waiter lowers himself from the roof of the front building. Once captured, this inmate will escape in the exact same manner in 1837.
I love the same method worked twice, as if like they just learned nothing the first time.
5 years
Just, like,
apart, too.
Yeah, slap on the wrist, like, don't do it again.
In 1842, Charles Dickens visits the United States to see Niagara Falls and the Eastern State Penitentiary, because that's how you plan a trip, I guess. He will later write, quote, "The system is rigid, strict, and hopeless solitary confinement, and I believe it, in its effects, to be cruel and wrong," end quote.
Yay. I mean, he's not wrong, but, I mean, like, thanks for your input, Charlie. You can just throw it in the suggestion box, I guess.
I'm sure they'll take it into consideration.
I'm sure they have one, right?
We jump ahead to 1923. Female prisoners are removed to a new prison at Muncie. In July, inmate Leo Callahan and 5 accomplices armed with pistols successfully scale the east wall after holding up a group of unarmed guards. More than 100 inmates escaped from Eastern State during its 142 years of active use. Callahan is the only one never to be recaptured. All of Callahan's accomplices were apprehended, including one that made it as far as Honolulu, Hawaii.
What? Like,
Yep.
Wow. Okay. Okay, so hold on.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah. Okay, first off, how in the fuck do you hold up unarmed guards with pistols in a prison as a prisoner?
I don't know how they
Like-
got the pistols. It didn't say.
Yeah, like, that's impressive. Like, you're the armed one in the situation, the prisoner. Like, that's something, someone was sleeping on the job there. But B, over 100 escaped and were recaptured, even as far as Hawaii. But Callahan was never found?
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's either impressive for him or he's dead.
Yep.
He just died.
He's the only one.
That's so
I mean,
weird.
he's probably dead now. This is 1923, and he wasn't
Well, yeah.
a small child. But yeah, I don't know if he like just got out and died, or if he lived a nice, long, happy life. Like we'll never know.
He drowned on the boat to Hawaii.
Maybe just jumped overboard.
Yeah.
August 12th, 1924. Pennsylvania Governor Gifford Pinchot allegedly sentenced Pep, the cat-murdering dog, to a life sentence at Eastern State.
A dog?
It gets better. Pep, the dog, allegedly murdered the governor's wife's cherished cat.
Oh no. That's sad.
And so prison records reflect that Pep was assigned an inmate number C-2559, which is seen in his mugshot here. And however, and we'll also put the mugshot up on our Instagram. However, the reason for Pep's incarceration remains a subject of some debate. A newspaper article reported that the governor donated his own dog to the prison to increase inmate morale.
Oh, all right. Like, I could see how a prison dog can raise some morale. I mean, my coworker brought her dog in once, and it raised morale for everyone.
I really hope the dog was just sentenced. It's hilarious.
Yeah.
Like, you killed my wife's cat.
Yeah.
Life in prison.
Imagine punishing a wild animal, like, thinking it understands what you're doing to it. You know what I mean? Like, it's a fucking dog. Like,
The best is they got it to sit for the mugshot.
right? Like, my dog will piss on the carpet right in front of me, and then I'll yell at it, and it just looks at me like, I don't know what I did wrong. And it's just like,
Yeah, fuck you, bro.
they're just dogs.
1929 to 1930. Chicago gangster Al Capone spends 8 months in Eastern State Penitentiary. An article in the Philadelphia Public Ledger, August 20th, 1929, describes Capone's cell. Quote, "The whole room was suffused in the glow of a desk lamp which stood on a polished desk. On the once grim walls of the penal chamber hung tasteful paintings. On the strains of the waltz were... and the strains of the waltz were being emitted by a powerful cabinet radio receiver of some handsome design and fine finish."
Sounds relatively comfy for a prison cell.
Sounds like good old Al was greasing the palms of many people in that prison.
Yeah. I mean, like, good on you, man. Taking that negative and making it into, like, a little bit less negative, I guess. Because, I mean,
Guy
you're
was a
still in
fucking
jail
gangster.
at the end of the day. Yeah.
1945, 12 men escape through a tunnel that emerges at Fairmont Avenue and 22nd Street. Prison plaster worker Clarence Kleindienst designed Clarence. His name's fucking Clarence. Designed
Clarence,
and built
alright.
most of the tunnel. At the time of the escape, Clarence had only 2 years left to serve, and most of the men were caught within minutes.
Yeah. And I bet that, too, turned into, like, 22, probably. I forget where I read this, but there's a country where they don't punish prisoners for, like, making an escape out of prison. Like, if you try to escape prison and they catch you, like, they don't tack on more time to the sentence.
That's weird.
Because the reasoning is it's just human nature to want to
not wanna
escape
be in
incarceration. Yeah. I thought it was cool. I just wanted to share that.
That's
I don't
very
remember.
interesting, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Well,
it makes sense.
Clarence was out for 2 hours and then had an additional 10 years added onto his sentence.
Yeah. That.
Bank robber Willie Sutton takes credit for planning the tunnel.
Well, don't do that, you dum-dum.
Pennsylvania legislature also recommends abandoning Eastern State Penitentiary that same year in 1945.
Sounds like quitter talk.
But it closed in 1971, and they were already talking about nixing it in 45 after the Second World War.
Jesus.
1961, inmate John Klausenberg, must be an Irish guy, tricks a guard into opening the cell of another inmate. With the cells open, the inmates overpower the guard and begin the largest riot in the prison's history. Several hours later, a large force of police, guards, and state troopers reclaim the prison. The riot fuels discussions to close Eastern State.
Sounds like a pretty good party.
Yeah.
I'd like to partake.
January 1970, Eastern State Penitentiary closes.
Yeah, I mean, I can see throwing in a towel at that place 9 years after a riot. That makes
Yeah.
sense. I guess.
Most inmates were sent to the State Correctional Institute at Gatorford. While the penitentiary's electrical and mechanical systems are in terrible shape, the walls and paint are actually in perfect condition. And I think it's 1971. I didn't put this in here, but there was an issue at another prison where it was like either flooding or something happened, and they used Eastern State Penitentiary to house them until the repairs could be made. So that's why it was technically used until 1971.
Gotcha.
Now, today, Eastern State Penitentiary is a museum. And
Cool.
over 220 people come each year to educate themselves in the historical prison. But what is arguably more fascinating is that each fall, the prison becomes home to one of the largest haunted house attractions in the country.
Yo, what? Are we going next year?
I'm down. Philly's not that far.
Me too. Yeah, it's not that far.
I think it's like
God.
a little over 2 hours from me.
Yeah, and that'd be probably like maybe 5 or 6 from me.
Yeah, but you could
Depending
come
on
here
where I
first
end
and
up.
then we'll just go.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll leave Jess here with Jill and we'll just go.
No way, dude. Jess wants to go. But
So,
yeah, no, we'll leave her here though.
yeah.
I'm sleeping on the couch. So.
Yeah, probably. I'm lucky enough my wife is too busy to listen to these, so she'll never know I said this.
That's fair.
Once the museum closes to the public, technical and production teams have about 1 hour to flip the switch to the lights off, turn on the fog machines, and get the music rolling for the haunted house. Actors in masks and costumes jump out at visitors from cells. Neon lights and clowns line one of the cell blocks. A loud shriek echoes through the darkness. The production brings 300 staff members onto the set every night.
Well, holy shit, man! I like seriously want to go. That
Dude,
sounds really cool.
We can plan this for next year. Absolutely. We can
got,
even
like,
do. We may even be able to record there during the haunted house. I mean, I can
Yeah.
try and set it up.
That'd be cool.
It's called Terror Behind the Walls, and features Hollywood quality sets, custom designed props, animatronics, digital sound effects, and a cast of more than 200 performers in a theatrical production that consists of 6 haunted attractions, consistently ranked among the top haunted house attractions in the United States. Terror Behind the Walls is the largest and runs on select evenings in the fall.
That sounds a lot of fun. Yeah, dude, we're definitely gonna plan this for like next year. It sounds damn cool.
It's really
like,
cool.
I haven't been to a good haunted house in maybe like 15 years. Like, I went to a lot when I was young, and like there's some around here, but they're I don't want to like shit on them, but they're kind of rinky dink. You know what I mean?
I mean,
like,
I've been to some poo poo ones. I'll say like the one here in Connecticut at Lake Compounds that we used to go to every year.
Mm-hmm.
It was decent. I mean, it has its areas, you know, because like they keep you in the dark, and there's areas where you're walking through and people are in ghillie suits, but the walls are all grass, so you don't know who's where and what's what, and like things jump out and grab you. So
yeah,
it's the ones where like because haunted houses today have gotten to the point where like people can't touch you. People can't, like, you have to be careful because you don't want to get sued because this culture is so sue happy. So, like, if you scare somebody enough, they'll fucking claim, like, mental anguish and then sue everybody, and it's, like, the whole thing just gets shot down. So, that's why haunted houses today aren't that good anymore.
Dude, I'll sign a waiver if one of them will, like, come out and bite me in the leg. Like, no joke. Like, I will literally sign a waiver if one of these guys will come out and bite me in the leg. Like, that, nothing would scare me more than, like...
So, it's funny you should mention that. There is a guy, I want to say Middle America, call it Ohio, because I don't remember.
I think it's in Texas if you're talking about the one where you need to sign a waiver to go in.
Well, you know what? It might be Texas. You have to, not only do you have to sign a complete, like, waiver, it's called a haunted house. You have to take a physical. You have to take a psych eval. Then you have to sign the waiver. The only payment that you have to bring to enter the haunted house is food for the guy who operates its dog. That's the payment. And if you can make it through, the prize is $20,000.
No shit.
Yes. No one has ever made it through because it's not a haunted house. It is an actual house of horrors. It is torture. Like, you get waterboarded.
No shit.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is like, this guy is advertising it as like the world's greatest haunted house because no one has ever actually made it through. But this guy's just a sick fuck who likes doing this to people and found a legitimate way to do it.
Legal loophole to like waterboard
that's
people.
literally all it is.
Yeah. Weird.
But yeah, you have to take a full-on physical and mental psych eval.
Yeah, I don't know if I would like go that far with it, but like I said, man, if like I don't know, like if I could find a place where like people could actually jump out and like grab me, you know what I mean? Like,
and they don't have to like hug and grab you, but like just for them to just reach out and like touch your shoulder.
Yep.
And be like, ah, and touch your shoulder. That's all you need. That's what gets you, because when you hear ah, you're like, meh. But when it's you that's getting grabbed, you're like, oh.
Yeah, like, holy shit, get off me. Like, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, it would be nothing cooler than a man sliding underneath a table, from under the table, and like biting me in the leg. It'd just be like, holy shit, I'm so scared. Like, this guy.
Or like, even, you know what I mean? Like, even, you know those haunted house, like when you walk through and there's that one like butcher scene, where like it's the creepy dude chopping up like a pig or something on a table, and it just looks creepy. Well, what if that person could reach across the table and actually grab you? Now, they don't need a real knife.
Right.
And the pig can be fake.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, it could just be sculpted, and like you don't get dirty just because they grab you, because it's all like plastic or whatever.
They grab you and like hold your arm down for a second while they like pretend they're gonna just lop it.
Exactly.
Yeah, that'd be cool, dude. That'd be really cool. No, that's
And you know, you just sign a waiver saying like, there is no intent to harm you. Don't harm the people that are doing this, but it's a more realistic haunted house.
I think the one that I don't think the one in Texas is the one that you were talking about, like the torture house. But that one
I don't remember where it is.
Yeah, it might even be a different one I'm thinking of, but it's on a pig farm, and basically they just like use that to their advantage. They just have like gross, like they have pig blood and guts, and you know what I mean, like
and they give it more of like a Deliverance feel. Yeah,
and it's it's definitely like one of the waiver ones because it's like supposed to scare the shit out of you,
which is awesome. Like that's but that's why you go to a haunted house. But then there's haunted houses for all ages, and then there's haunted houses.
Right.
Like the Lake Compound stuff, the Six Flags stuff, like those haunted houses are made so that, you know, young adolescents and early teenagers can go experience it as well.
Yeah.
And get creeped out and freaked out. And then there may be one or two places that like scare the adults. And then there's also like the places that they have where it just like freak you out because it's like there's the thing with like the spinning, you're walking on a ramp, but the whole room is spinning and it fucks you up like with your equilibrium.
You get so disoriented.
And stuff.
Yeah.
So.
I remember in like 6th grade or so, we definitely went to a haunted house in Salem, Massachusetts, and they brought their A game. That was a pretty good one.
Salem takes it seriously because that's all the witch stuff and everything. Yeah. So they're big into Halloween.
I'm curious if they still take it that seriously.
I would assume so.
Yeah. Hopefully. That'd be cool.
Yeah. Next year we'll set it up. We'll go to Eastern State Penitentiary haunted house.
Hell yeah.
We'll take a night in Philly. Grab some cheesesteaks and then go get the shit scared out of us.
Shit, yeah. That sounds great. That sounds so good.
Well, that is all for this episode of the Mystery in Our History podcast. If you have any urban legends or conspiracy theories that you think we should cover, feel free to email us at 4guysmedianetwork@gmail.com. Please make sure to subscribe and rate us on iTunes. Click the like and subscribe icons on YouTube on the 4 Guys Media Network page, or check us out on SoundCloud by searching MIOH Pod, all one word. Thanks for listening, and we will see you next time on the Mystery in Our History podcast. Bye.
See ya.